You come from a long, unbroken line of survivors. Every single one of your ancestors, going back millions of years, lived long enough to have children. Not one link in that chain was ever broken. That is what it took for you to be here, watching this, right now. But they were not the kind of survivors you're imagining, because for most of human history, your ancestors were not the fearless hunters standing at the top of the food chain. They were the prey. Small, slow, and physically weak, with no claws, no fangs, no armor, and no real speed. Hunted by leopards, by hyenas the size of small bears, by cats with teeth like knives, and by lions far larger than any alive on Earth today. And we are not guessing about this. We have the skulls to prove it, with the bite marks still in them. Let me tell you about one of those skulls. Deep in a cave system in South Africa, researchers found the fossilized skull of a young human ancestor, a child from a species called Paranthropus. And punched into the top of that skull were two neat round holes. For a long time, no one was certain what had made them. Then a scientist named C.K. Brain did something simple and chilling. He took the lower jaw of an ancient leopard, and he lined its two long, stabbing lower fangs up with the two holes in the skull. They matched perfectly. This child had been caught by a leopard, killed with a single bite to the head, and almost certainly dragged up into a tree or down into the cave to be eaten. What we found, hundreds of thousands of years later, were the leftovers. And that skull, with its two puncture marks, became one of the most haunting pieces of evidence in all of human origins. Because it tells us, without any doubt at all, something we don't really like to admit about where we come from. For most of our story, we were food. So let's meet the predators that hunted us. And let's start with the one that was probably the deadliest of them all, the leopard. We don't usually think of leopards as monsters, but to our early ancestors, they may have been the single most dangerous animal alive. Leopards are ambush hunters, perfectly built for killing primates. Even today, leopards prey on baboons, monkeys, chimpanzees, and occasionally even gorillas. And their taste for our kind of animal almost certainly stretched back millions of years to include our ancestors. They hunt in total silence. They wait, motionless, and then explode out of cover. They drop from tree branches directly onto their prey, and once they've made a kill, they haul it, sometimes something heavier than themselves, high up into the branches to eat undisturbed. For a small, upright ape crossing the open African landscape, a leopard was a shadow that could end you in a single heartbeat, and you would never even see it coming. No warning, no chance to run, just a blur, and then nothing. That bitten skull we started with is almost certainly the work of exactly this kind of hunter. It is the oldest, clearest snapshot we have of what it actually felt like to be prey, but the leopard was far from the only thing hunting us. Picture the world our ancestors truly lived in. It was full of giant predators we can barely imagine today. There were hyenas, but not the hyenas you know. Some ancient hyenas were enormous, powerful pack hunters, capable of bringing down large prey and crushing bone with some of the strongest jaws of any mammal that has ever lived. Now imagine being caught in the open, alone, by a coordinated pack of those. There were cave lions, and this one is worth pausing on because a cave lion was not a normal lion. It was significantly bigger than the African lions of today, one of the largest cats that has ever existed, and it ruled the Ice Age world as an apex predator for 200,000 years. To an ancient human, a cave lion was something that could kill you effortlessly, without a struggle. There were bears far larger than the ones alive now. There were saber-toothed cats, with curved fangs longer than your hand, built to deliver a single devastating killing bite. In the rivers waded enormous crocodiles, ambushing exactly as they still do today. And in the skies above, there were eagles and birds of prey so large they could snatch a young hominin right off the ground. In fact, that same species, Paranthropus, has been found with damage suggesting a giant bird of prey was among its killers too. From above and below, from the trees, the water, and the tall grass, our ancestors were completely surrounded. So how exactly do you survive a world like that? You have no claws, no fangs. You cannot outrun a leopard or a lion. You cannot outmuscle a bear or a pack of hyenas. By every measure that usually decides life and death in the wild, our ancestors should have been easy prey. And often they were. So what did they actually have going for them? They had three things. And together, those three things didn't just keep them alive. They eventually flipped the entire natural order completely upside down. The first was each other. A lone early human was a snack, but a group standing together was a very different problem. Predators hunt the isolated, the wounded, the straggler at the edge. They tend to avoid targets that fight back as a unit. By sticking close together, watching each other's backs, and refusing to scatter in panic, our ancestors made themselves far more dangerous to attack than their small size alone would ever suggest. Safety, quite literally, in numbers. The second thing was their minds. Our ancestors couldn't outrun predators, so instead, they outthought them. They learned the habits of the hunters. They knew when the big cat stalked and when they rested. They chose safer, more defensible places to sleep. They stayed alert, read the landscape for danger, and used raw intelligence to avoid becoming a target in the first place. Survival for them was rarely about winning a fight. It was about being clever enough to never be in one. And the third thing changed absolutely everything: fire and weapons. The control of fire may have been one of the single greatest anti-predator inventions in all of history. Almost every animal on Earth instinctively fears fire, and a group of humans gathered around a blazing hearth at night suddenly became something no predator wanted to come near. Fire pushed back the darkness itself, the very place where the hunters lived and killed. And then came the sharpened stick, the spear, a tool that finally handed a weak, clawless ape the power to strike back and, crucially, to strike from a distance without ever having to get within reach of those teeth. And this is where the entire story takes its incredible turn, because at some point we stopped simply defending ourselves, and we started hunting back. We have the proof of this too, and it is genuinely staggering. In Germany, researchers examined the skeleton of a cave lion, that same enormous apex predator dating back around 48,000 years. And on one of its ribs, they found the unmistakable mark of a wooden spear, a deliberate, fatal wound. This is the earliest direct evidence we have anywhere of a large predator being hunted and killed by human hands. Neanderthals, our close cousins, had taken down one of the most dangerous animals of the entire Ice Age, on purpose. Think about what that actually requires. The descendants of small apes who were once dragged up into trees by leopards had become creatures that could plan, cooperate, and kill a cave lion using nothing but pointed sticks. To pull that off, you need communication. You need real strategy. You need a group that trusts each other completely and moves as one body. Hunting a predator like that isn't a feat of strength, it's a feat of everything that makes us human. We had crossed the line, from the hunted to the hunter, and that single flip may be one of the most important things that ever happened in our entire history. For millions of years, we lived in fear of the monsters waiting in the dark. And then, slowly, through teamwork and intelligence and fire and sharpened stone, we became the most dangerous predator this planet had ever seen. So dangerous that in the end, nearly all of those great Ice Age hunters, the cave lions, the sabertooths, the giant hyenas, vanished into extinction, and we did not. So the next time you picture your ancient ancestors, don't only picture the confident hunter with a spear over his shoulder, remember the ones who came long before him. The ones who lived their entire lives in fear, watching the tree line, listening into the dark, clutching their children close, surrounded on every side by things that wanted to eat them. And every single one of them survived long enough to pass life on. Through millions of years of leopards and lions and things with teeth like knives, that fragile chain of survivors never broke, not even once. You are the proof that they made it. You come from the animals that were hunted, and somehow, against everything, we became the ones that are feared.